This is FE Peer Review. The date is March the 25th, 2025. Science, Pragmatism, and Pseudo-Science. When is enough enough? A few weeks back, I did a little video about Joe Hanvey, and a few people, I think, coming from Joe Hanvey's channel have come over to mine and watched the video. I'm glad about that. I always welcome visitors and friendly, constructive comments. Recently, in the last day or so, somebody by the name of Molly left some comments here. And I'm going to refer to Molly as she and her. I don't know her pronouns, but I'm guessing from the name Molly that would be appropriate. Please excuse me if I'm wrong. But I wanted to mention there was a little problem. She posted some comments, and then it seems she posted a comment that wouldn't show up. And she was concerned about why her comment wasn't showing up. I want to assure Molly and everybody watching my channel, I don't block comments. The only kind of comment I would consider blocking is something that's like racist or a death threat or something like that. I just don't block comments just because I disagree with a person's opinion. I may ignore one on my own. Personally, I may choose not to respond. It's just me trying to keep my temper under control. So just as a reminder, though, if you're having trouble seeing a comment, use both these options, top comments and newest first. Sometimes switching from one to the other will get a comment to show up. Eventually, her comments did show up. At least they showed up to me. I'm hoping they're showing up to other visitors. Just to be certain, the comment that she was concerned about, I reposted myself with quotes around it to let people know it's her. Let's see, I think it's this one here. Yes, edit. Okay, I just changed the comments from top comments to newest first. Now I see a comment from you. Maybe it'll show up, but just in case it doesn't work, I'm going to copy and paste your comment here so that it is properly seen. And then I copied and pasted here. And now this comment from Molly is the one I'm going to be responding to. I left her very lengthy response, written response, but this video, I'm going to go through that response to Molly. And in order to do that, for it all to make sense, I need to back up just a little bit and put a little bit of background. Her very initial comment to me was, but shouldn't you be able to demonstrate this gravity force you claim exists? Well, I said it's been demonstrated repeatedly going back hundreds of years, and I'm sure you've been told the same before. She responded politely, and I liked the tenor of her response and decided maybe this is a person that actually is open to having, some respectful dialogue. So I mentioned a few other things like the Cavendish experiment and the Skyhalion experiment and the Blue Marble Sciences channel reproducing the Cavendish experiment. And then I also mentioned more recent things like, being able to see gravity of a star alter the path of light of another star coming towards us, which is a relativity thing going on there, getting into Einstein, which is way, way, way past my pay grade. But I mentioned these various things, and she responded again. She says, I'm well aware of the Cavendish experiment, but I was hoping for some more pointers, which you've kindly provided me with. So thanks. Great. Thank you, Molly. I hope you have a chance to look into all of this more. Then this was the comment that for some reason wasn't posting properly before, and then eventually it came up. She says to me, proper science requires that we investigate whether other things might be the cause of the movement in experiments such as Cavendish, not simply pounce on the result as a proof of a hypothesis one has. She's got a point. If we've formed a hypothesis and then we've created a experiment to test it, and it upholds our hypothesis, that does not necessarily mean that hypothesis is the actual correct hypothesis. There may be other causes at work that we're ignoring, either purposely or unconsciously. So that does need to be considered. She continues, do these experiments account for electromagnetism at all? I really can't see that they do. It seems to me there is such an intense need to prove gravity that it overrides the necessity to conduct experiments properly. Basically, in my opinion, it's shoddy workmanship and the experiments ought to be discounted. So this is what I'm responding to, and I'm sorry that my response goes on for pages and pages, where her comment was only just a few sentences long and very concise and well stated. But that's what it is. It's going to take some time to get through this, so I'm warning you. This video is going to be from here on out another wall of words like I do once in a while. In this case, I have numbered my slides so that you'll be able to see the finish line gradually approaching and hopefully not lose all hope along the way. But just so you know, I've got other things in progress that I'm going to make for you in the next video, which will have lots of pretty pictures and interesting images. So there's hope yet for this channel. It's not all words. There are also some nice images. So what I'm going to be doing in my next video is a bit of a sneak preview, is looking at what's field of view in perspective and how does that work. And I typically use SketchUp for a lot of the work I do. Somebody asked me recently in one of the comments on one of my videos what field of view I was using in a certain video, and I'm going to answer that question, and I'm going to show how I pick a field of view and how it works in SketchUp and how it was done in traditional hand-drawn perspective, the way it was taught to architects, in previous generations. I often wonder if they still teach it to architecture students today, now that everything is digital. I learned it, well, I taught myself when I was a child, but they were still teaching it at the university when I got my degree in architecture. So I'm curious. I haven't been back to my university in decades. I have no idea what they teach there now. Anyway, that's a sneak preview of what's coming up. Lots of pretty pictures to come. I'll show it in my architecture work, and I'll show it in one of my recent peer review videos. But now onward to the wall of words. And so we begin. Slide 1 of 9. I'll respond as best I can to your mention of electromagnetism. It's rather complicated, so please excuse the lengthy reply. I'm not an expert in every aspect of physics. I wouldn't consider myself to be an expert in even one aspect of physics. My education and work was in the engineering of buildings, so I've got some background, but not that of a professional physicist. If there is some, quote, possible alternative explanation for something, like the Cavendish experiment, then should the results of the experiment, quote, be discounted? Those were her words. I don't think so. There is always some possible alternative explanation, even if we haven't come up with it yet. To, quote, discount the results of a carefully designed and constructed experiment because there might be an alternative explanation basically means we can never draw a conclusion about anything. We never make any progress. We might as well still be living in caves. Could electromagnetism be influencing that experiment? Possibly. Is it influencing it? Well, what do we actually know about electromagnetism that suggests it actually could be influencing the results? Do we have a well-established theory of electromagnetism that has been repeatedly tested and which demonstrates a mechanism by which it could influence the results? I'll try not to do too many asides here, but I guess what I'm saying here is, well, could it be influencing it? I don't know. Maybe is there any good reason to think it might be influencing it? That's the question we need to answer. If the answer is yes, then we need to make sure our Cavendish experiment, or whatever other experiment we might be talking about, has been designed to reduce as much as possible any electromagnetic influence. Was the experiment designed for that? Well, Cavendish made huge efforts to minimize outside influences of any kind, but I don't think much was known about electromagnetism in his day. The same could be said about the Schehallien experiment. Is there a known mechanism whereby electromagnetism would influence it? Was that accounted for? I don't know. But again, there's a deeper problem here. Earlier I asked, do we have a well-established theory of electromagnetism that has been repeatedly tested and which demonstrates a mechanism by which it could influence the results? What if the answer to that is no? Previously we looked at the possible answer of yes. Now I ask, what if the answer to that is no, we don't? What if we don't have that well-proven theory? Then we've got two paths forward. One, the first path is the path we've taken, and that is to build on the work we've done with gravity, work which is based on hypotheses that have been tested repeatedly in many ways, and which has been shown to provide very reliable results capable of giving accurate predictions that match what we see in nature. Newtonian gravity is basically the cornerstone of all physics up until Einstein. All my work in engineering, for example, is based on simple Newtonian principles, and those principles work so well that we can design bridges, dams, tall buildings, and know they won't fall down. Newton's work enables us to calculate the ballistic trajectories of missiles with amazing accuracy. Basically, every piece of physical infrastructure we encounter in our daily lives is engineered based on Newtonian principles, and his gravity formulation is the foundation of it all. Einstein comes along at a time when some very small but identifiable inaccuracies have become apparent in Newton's work. Einstein finds the solution. Now, truthfully, we've managed just fine for centuries with Newton. Our buildings stand up just fine. If Newton isn't 100% perfect, he's like 99.9999% good enough. But Einstein's improvements open up some more innovations. It works for the most extreme cases. The example of the starlight being bent by the gravity of another star it's passing is an example where we need Einstein. It's real, very real, and Einstein's work predicts it well. I gather that the extremely precise clocks used in the Global Positioning System satellites also depend on Einstein's work, and we wouldn't have that technology without it. But in my engineering work, I never once needed to look to Einstein. While Newton may have been 99.9999% right, Einstein is 99.999999% right. They don't contradict each other. Einstein's is an improvement on Newton's and opens up wider vistas in our understanding of the universe. Anyhow, we have them both, and we use them. They serve us well. 2. The second path. Could it be that we've got it all wrong? And electromagnetism is what it's all about? Well, considering that we've basically built the modern world successfully on the backs of Newton's and Einstein's works, we must have something right. Does that mean we should simply ignore the possibility that something like electromagnetism is at work? In my opinion, no, we shouldn't ignore it. If there's some reason to think it will yield results that are even more accurate and useful than Einstein's work, then we should look into it. Is there reason to think that? What inaccuracies or gaps are we seeing in Einstein's work that need to be improved? What do we know about electromagnetism that suggests it might be more accurate or fill those gaps? Personally, I don't have the answers to these questions. I'd need to ask them of some very high-level physicist who specializes in electromagnetism. That said, I've seen random people on YouTube, random like myself, I consider myself a random person on YouTube, who think gravity basically doesn't exist or is all wrong and, quote, electromagnetism is the answer, whatever that means to them. I don't buy it for reasons that should be pretty clear from what I wrote above. I'd like to point this out. When we wave our hands in the air and mumble jargon like ether bands or toroidal fields, that's another one that pops up, and such, as a, quote, possible explanation for something, then we're headed back to the situation where anything can be put up as a hurdle to the progress of knowledge. I started this comment by pointing out that there is, quote, always some possible alternative explanation. But at some point, when we've got solutions that have been proven to work over and over again, that yield incredibly accurate and predictable results, we need to move on. We can't keep dreaming up new, quote, alternative possible explanations. If we've identified real problems with Newtonian gravity and general relativity, problems that show clear conflicts with what nature does, then by all means, we should try to find a better answer. But frankly, I don't see that we have those problems. What I do see is that gravity is a serious thorn in the side of flat earthers because gravity directly leads to the high likelihood of planets being spheres and of planetary systems developing around suns. Most of the people I hear on YouTube who promote electromagnetism also fall in the flat earth camp. Certainly Joe Hanvey does. And I think they promote electromagnetism because they think it will do away with their anxiety about gravity, which is a real threat to flat earth. They're basically trying to throw out an extremely well-supported set of natural laws built on mountains of evidence because it conflicts with their preconceived notion of the shape of the earth, and they're trying to replace those natural laws with a formulation of their own that will support their initial belief. That's the opposite of how to achieve knowledge. They're throwing away evidence that doesn't fit with their beliefs, instead of shaping their understanding of nature on the evidence nature itself presents. If somebody can come along with a, quote, theory of electromagnetism that does a better job than general relativity at explaining what is observed in nature, whether it be an apple falling from a tree or distant starlight bending its path as it nears another star, then that person deserves a Nobel Prize and will probably get it if he or she can actually demonstrate with lots of solid evidence that this theory of electromagnetism is true. But I'm not holding my breath.